I will.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A very good morning and a warm welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us for the Putrajaya Forum 2024. And just before we get started, we'd like to invite all our distinguished guests from around the world to kindly take your seats. Please do kindly take your seats as we will be starting shortly. Members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, upon the announcement of the arrival of the Honorable Defense Minister of Malaysia, please do kindly rise to welcome him. But for this moment in time, we'd like to invite all guests to please take your seats, as we shall be starting shortly. Thank you. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, once again, we'd like to seek your kind cooperation to please find your seats and do be seated as we will be starting shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you to the Putrajaya Forum 2024. Thank you for your attendance this morning, bright and early, as we will be starting real soon. Once again, we seek your kind cooperation to please find your seats and do settle down as we shall be starting shortly. Thank you. Members of the media, especially our photographers, please do kindly take note that we'll be starting at the main entrance with our VIPs. Please take note to members of the photography crew for all media outlets. We will be starting at the foyer for our VIP entrance. Thank you. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, announcing the arrival of Yang Berhormat Dato Sri Muhammad Khalid bin Nordin, Minister of Defence, Malaysia, accompanied by our other distinguished guests this morning. Thank you, distinguished guests. Ladies and gentlemen, do kindly be seated. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A very good morning and a warm welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us for the 7th Putrajaya Forum. It is truly our pleasure to roll out the red carpet to all our guests from around the world this morning as we look forward to spirited engagement and discussion on the two very exciting topics towards enhanced non-traditional security cooperation and applying emerging technologies in improving military and defense diplomacy. Yang Berhormat Datuk Sri Muhammad Khalid bin Nordin, Minister of the Ministry of Defense Malaysia, the Honorable Opah Chamu Zipange Muchinguri Kashiri, Minister of Defense Zimbabwe, His Excellency Dr. Jalal Sami Tufekci, Deputy Minister of National Defense of the Republic of Turkey, Yang Berbahagia General Tan Sri Datuk Sri Muhammad bin Abdul Rahman, Chief of Defence Force, Malaysia, Yang Berbahagia Datuk Sri Isham Ishak, Secretary General to the Ministry of Defence Malaysia, Yang Berbahagia Major General Datuk Haji Yaakob bin Haji Samiran, Chief Executive, Malaysian Institute of Defence and Security, MIDAS, Tan Sris, Datuk Sris, Datuk and Datins in attendance, our esteemed speakers and moderators, members of the international media, ladies and gentlemen. Before we proceed this morning, allow me to kindly invite Lieutenant Colonel Izani bin Abu Bakar to lead us in the recitation of the dua.
A'udzu billahi minasyaitonir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wal 'aqibatu lil muttaqin. Wala 'udwana illa 'alal zalimin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. In the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful. All praise and thanks are due to Almighty God, the cherisher and sustainer of the world. Grant us peace and tranquility, safety, wisdom and guidance to perform all that you expect out of us. Peace and mercy of Allah be showered upon the last prophet of God, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allahumma ya Allah, on this glorious morning, in conjunction with the 7th Putrajaya Forum 2024, we hold up our hands to thank you on your infinite favors to us, such that we can live in peace and harmony as nations of the world in need of your grace. Allahumma iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. We pray and ask your blessing to make this occasion a success, because we realize that without your grace and mercy, all our endeavors will be null and to no avail. We seek your mercy and guidance to facilitate our efforts and protect us from any inconvenience throughout this period. We also pray that you will give us strength and wisdom so that we will be able to upgrade our expertise, professionalism, and strengthen our cohesion. Let this gathering be the most rewarding to all present and enable participants from everywhere to meet and interact for mutual gains and success. Rabbana alayka tawakkalna wa ilayka anabna wa ilaykal masir. Ya Allah, show us the right path and dispel anxiety and remove hatred out of our hearts and promote among us a sense of cooperation, sincerity, so that we will have global goodwill and harmony. Allahumma ja'al jam'ana hadha jam'an marhuma wa tafarruqana min ba'dihi tafarruqan ma'suma. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina adzaban nar. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
Ameen, Ameen, Ya Rabbal Alameen. Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Izani bin Abu Bakar of the Malaysian Armed Forces, for leading us in the recitation of the Dua. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as we gaze upon the overarching theme this morning, non-traditional threats and emerging technologies, we truly do understand that we live in an ever-changing world where mankind has been overly reliant on technology. From algorithms to increasingly now AI, it is something that has become a reality in our lives as we carry technology with us around as almost a virtual personal assistant. As we gaze into the future, this topic becomes pertinent, and our two esteemed panel will describe this topic in very interestingly and intrinsically interesting terms as we look forward to your questions and engagement and hope to unravel these topics as best we can this morning. We have limited time, so let's get started. Without any further ado, it is now my great pleasure to invite Yang Berbahagia Major General Dato' Haji Yaakob bin Haji Samiran, the Chief Executive of the Malaysian Institute of Defence and Security, MIDAS, to now deliver his welcome remarks.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin. Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Yang berhormat Datuk Seri Muhammad Khalid bin Nordin, Minister of Defence Malaysia. Her Honorable Opakamu Wipen Machinghuri Kasiri, Minister of Defence Zimbabwe, His Excellency Dr. Jalal Sami Tofiki, Deputy Minister of National Defence of the Republic of Turkey, Yang Bahagia General Tan Sri Datuk Sri Muhammad bin Abdul Rahman, Chief of Defence Force, Malaysian Armed Forces, Yang Bahagia Datuk Sri Isam Ishak, Secretary General, Ministry of Defence Malaysia, Tan Sri, Datuk Sri, Datuk, Excellencies, esteemed speakers and moderators, members of media, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. A very good morning and Salam Malaysia Madani. On behalf of Malaysian Institute of Defence and Security, MIDAS, Ministry of Defence Malaysia, I am honored to welcome everyone to the 7th edition of the Putrajaya Forum. Our theme this year is non-traditional threat and emerging technologies. It has been 2 years since our last gathering, and there are still many outgoing issues that require our attention. We need to allocate time to discuss these issues intellectually, and this forum is an ideal platform to do so. MIDAS celebrated its 14th anniversary 2 weeks ago. We are still our twin years, but we strive to catch up with other similar institutions in Malaysia and the region which have set a high benchmark. Any institution will go through its growing pains period, and MIDAS is no exception. However, we are fortunate to have a supportive Defence Minister, Yang Berhormat Datuk Seri Muhammad Khalid bin Nordin, who trusts us and always encourages us to improve. We are also lucky to have colleagues from the ministry, led by the Secretary General, Yang Bahagia Datuk Seri Isam Ishak, who always give us necessary support and advice whenever required. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we began planning for this forum in early June last year. Apart from managing the budget and logistics, identifying the right topics was a challenging task because we have many issues of concern. After a thorough consultation, we choose the topic of non-traditional threat and emerging technologies as the central theme this year. The non-traditional threat is a subject close to my heart. Having experienced counter-insurgency operation in the Malaysian jungle in the 80s, to existing the emergency response teams in natural disaster like flood and landslides. I was also given the trust to lead the Malaysian monitoring team for the international monitoring team in Mindanao. With that experience, I fully attest to how serious non-traditional threats can be and how important they should be addressed. Time and time again, non-traditional threat will occur when we are unprepared. Notwithstanding the outgoing geopolitical rivalry in Malaysia's backyard, amidst the conflict between Russia and Ukraine and the rising tension in the Middle East, we believe there must be an avenue to discuss present concern on non-traditional threat and a platform to cultivate new ideas. As I near to the end of my military service, the call for military involvement in emergency response to natural disaster is getting louder. In our discussion with our foreign counterparts, we learned that other armed forces worldwide face similar situation. This is a challenge for the armed forces as it needs to go beyond its regular duties. Nonetheless, with any challenge comes opportunities. There are windows of opportunities for the armed forces to upskill to meet the present demand, opportunities for better training, chance to have better equipment, prospect for better cooperation, and many others. Over the years, I have also experienced the advancement of technologies, not only in weapon system, but also in communication and intelligent technology, which assist in the speed of decision-making for any commanders. The information we gather must be shared and integrated into the more holistic system to make a right move, save time, and rescue more lives. Today, this forum will allow policymakers and practitioners to discuss this issue. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the 7th edition of the Putrajaya Forum will not reach its intended target without the cooperation from the Ministry, Defence Services Asia, DSA, MIDAS Fellows, various experts, and not forgetting my colleague from the office. We are grateful the commitment and support given to us. We have prepared speakers who are well-versed in these issues, and they too are important decision makers in their respective organization. Their opinion and insights will be beneficial to all of us. Once again, we would like to express our profound gratitude to Yang Berhormat Datuk Seri Muhammad Khalid bin Nordin, Minister of Defence, for supporting this forum. Our heartfelt appreciation to our colleagues from the Ministry and those who assisted us in the success of the latest edition of the Putrajaya Forum. I wish everyone a fruitful session. Thank you. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Yang Berbahagia Major General Dato' Haji Yaakob bin Haji Samiran, the Chief Executive of the Malaysian Institute of Defence and Security, MIDAS. And now, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, to deliver the keynote address and to officially open the Putrajaya Forum 2024, it is my distinct pleasure to invite Yang Berhormat Dato' Sri Muhammad Khalid bin Nordin, Minister of Defence, Malaysia, to kindly take the stage.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning to all. Honorable Minister of Defence Zimbabwe and Honorable Deputy Minister from Turkey, Yang Berbahagia General Tan Sri Datuk Sri Muhammad bin Abdul Rahman, Malaysian Armed Forces Chief, Datuk Sri Shah Misak, Ministry of Defence Secretary General, Yang Berbahagia Major General Datuk Haji Yaakob, Chief Executive, Malaysian Institute of Defence and Security, MIDAS, distinguished guests, speakers and moderators, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor for me to be here. And to all esteemed guests, I would like to wish a very warm Selamat Datang. I hope you all have a very good sleep. The 7th edition of Putrajaya Forum marks the crucial efforts of Malaysian Institute of Defence and Security, MIDAS, in our security discourse, and the timing to immerse ourselves in the issue of non-traditional threats and emerging technologies could not be better. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to frame how international politics has evolved dynamically. The first quarter of a century often heralds seismic shifts. This would set the trajectory for the rest of the century. Numerous examples illustrate the merit of this observation. Take, for instance, the first quarter of the 19th century saw the Industrial Revolution period. New machines were invented, mass production ensued. At the same time, we saw the birth of nation states, which echoed throughout the century and beyond. The first quarter of the 20th century was marked by the First World War, followed by the harrowing sequel of the Second World War. Almost half of the 20th century, we witnessed the Cold War. With this premise in mind, let us scrutinize the significant events of the first 25 years of this century. The genesis of this era was marked by the seismic shock of the 9/11 attacks. It was a black swan event that truly defied anticipation. Yet, a grim procession of more terror attacks followed. Bali, Madrid, London, Mumbai, Christchurch, Manchester, and the list goes on. Terrorist groups across the world continued to perpetrate atrocities, provoke brutalities, and propagate narrowed ideologies. All this took decades of concerted efforts to counter. Admittedly, we did see some positive results in mitigating global threats. Nevertheless, several attacks and arrests resurfaced time and again. Recently, terror struck in the heart of Moscow. This reality highlights that terrorism is still very much alive. Moreover, it has evolved into a phenomenon of increasing complexity. The next big event was the COVID-19 pandemic, which forced us into an unprecedented global lockdown and living in the new normal. This encapsulates the extraordinary events of the first quarter of the 21st century, underscoring the unparalleled circumstances that await us in the next 75 years. Amidst all this, natural disasters and climate change continue to wreak havoc on health, living conditions, and agriculture. This relentless onslaught destroys decades of progress, mirroring the devastation of a tsunami. Only weeks ago, we even saw torrential rain and storms in Dubai that flooded highways and trapped people in their homes. And of course, Malaysia also faces an escalating frequency of natural disasters. And this is just the beginning and only the tip of the iceberg. We are yet to talk about environmental refugees, mass migration, food security, or even how water will dethrone oil as the future cause of major conflict. Ladies and gentlemen, the cyber and digital realm brings both opportunities and challenges amid major power rivalry. For Malaysia, it is a blessing in disguise. Malaysia just hosted the CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, along with a massive investment of 10.5 billion ringgit in artificial intelligence and cloud system. In recent years, Malaysia has been on track to be the regional hub of data centers, attracting prominent investors with commitment worth billions of ringgit. It has spanned from Johor, Cyberjaya, and Sarawak, showing our tenacity to facilitate the industry. All this digital investment, along with multi-layered cooperation to bolster our capacity building in cyberspace, have been safeguarded by our digital governance of competent agencies and acts. This is a necessity for us to navigate the bane of the emerging technology that might threaten our national interests. The emerging technologies today have transitioned from novelty to necessity. They stand as household names which continuously redefine the financial, healthcare, and education ecosystem around the world. We must be vigilant for the generative AI apps that accentuate their role in our daily lives. These omnipotent apps might determine our digital destinies. To top this all, emerging robotics and drone industries that was once Hollywood's imagination are now cheap to own, accessible to all, and have revolutionized warfare. All these significant events in just the first 25 years beg several questions. While acknowledging the substantial benefits of this advancement to humanity, do they also pose a threat to our civilization? Will non-traditional security threats continue to loom large for the rest of this century? How should we prepare for another unthinkable black swan event? Are future lockdowns inevitable? What insight have we learned from the past? More importantly, how can we enhance our cooperation and pursue more effective solutions? I alone cannot provide all the answers, but together we can identify and implement practical solutions which resonate not just locally or regionally, but globally as well. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure we have paid enough attention to the causal effect of non-traditional security that accelerates the pace for holistic solution. It comes with challenges characterized by rapidly evolving dynamics. It demands transformative and game-changing ideas. It requires interagency collaboration and transnational networks. It forces us to unlearn and relearn almost everything we know and understand about warfare and security threats. To effectively address these challenges, significant investment in new ideas, efforts, and resources is imperative. We must up the ante of our defense diplomacy by keeping tabs on the current predicament and leveraging the advantages offered by emerging technologies. The direction that we are headed now is to accelerate creative and effective defense solutions embedded in responsible technological adoption. It is ultimately advancing shared security interests and strengthening defense capabilities. New technologies that offer practical solutions should be the epicenter of diplomatic ties and international partnership negotiation. Technologies such as satellite and cybersecurity innovations have enabled enhanced real-time communication and information sharing among military and defense personnel. Having effectively streamlined coordination and expedited decision-making, these technologies warrant our dedicated research and investment focus. Based on this premise, I propose the following points for discussion. First, how can countries collaboratively embrace new technologies at both regional and global levels? Second, how can we facilitate cutting-edge information sharing through open big data initiative in collaboration with key stakeholders? Third, how can we leverage the emergence of function-based cooperation through minilateral and multilateral groups in addition to bilateral synergies to counter non-traditional security threats? Fourth, how can developing countries work together and commercial actors to catch up with their more advanced counterparts? Fifth, addressing non-traditional security risks requires prioritizing resources for the much younger generation. With their keen interest and familiarity with emerging technology, the younger generation can offer fresh insight and perspective. Investing in the next generation will ensure that they are equipped to navigate future challenges. The big question is, how do we proceed and where do we begin? These are the things to ponder, but fret not, it will not be left unattended. At MINDEF, we will forge ahead in our strive for answers. Ladies and gentlemen, all the concerns and views that I have expressed and shared today are far from exhaustive. However, I trust they have laid a sturdy foundation for robust and insightful discourses. I believe non-traditional threats demand extraordinary solution. For that, I welcome diverse ideas and unconventional views from all our speakers and participants. With that, I hereby declare the Putrajaya Forum 2024 open, and I wish everyone a successful deliberation. Sekian, thank you, terima kasih. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Yang Berhormat Datuk Seri Muhammad Khalid bin Nordin, Minister of Defence, Malaysia. Yang Berhormat Datuk Seri does have prior commitments and is unable to stay with us to the rest of the forum, but we thank him for his kind attendance and delivery of the keynote. I would like to invite Yang Berbahagia Major General Dato' Haji Yaakob bin Haji Samiran to accompany Yang Berhormat Datuk Seri Muhammad Khalid bin Nordin as he takes his leave. Once again, we thank Yang Berhormat Datuk Seri Muhammad Khalid bin Nordin for his kind attendance at the 7th Putrajaya Forum. And to all participants, please kindly remain seated as we will be starting with our discussion in just a short moment. Datuk Seri's keynote does leave us with several points to ponder upon as we look towards our first session, towards enhanced non-traditional security cooperation. I would like to now kindly invite to the stage to take her place as moderator for our first session, the distinctive and well-renowned Professor Rohanas Harun, a professor at the Department of Strategic Studies with the Faculty of Management and Defense Studies, National Defense University of Malaysia. Professor Rohanas will begin her duty as moderator and will certainly chair a spirited discussion ahead. I'd like to welcome Professor Rohanas to kindly join us on stage.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi. May I now invite the speakers, the Honorable, thank you. The Honorable Opa Chamu Zipenge Muchinguri Kashiri and His Excellency Dr. Jalal Shame Tufekci on stage. Good morning, welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, before proceeding to the discussion, may I give a brief introduction to the topic entitled Towards an Enhanced Non-Traditional Security Cooperation. The session will delve into some of the pressing contemporary issues with a focus on the evolving and continuing geopolitical and geostrategic competition currently and in the foreseeable future. While rivalry and competition among major powers persist, countries continue to collaborate and work with each other in many aspects of security in order to mitigate these security threats and vulnerabilities they face. Since the end of the Cold War, more attention has been paid to the non-traditional security threats. The rise and increase of these threats need to be addressed as promptly and as efficiently as possible, since they tend to manifest unexpectedly, as mentioned just now by the CEO of Midas. Examples of such threats, traditional pandemics, terrorism, natural disasters, and many more, forced a nation to cooperate with each other. Other threats, such as transnational crime, cybersecurity, climate change, also necessitate serious cooperation among nations. Hence, we need to explore the ways to deal with them. And in this forum, we are concerned with several issues. I shall name 3 of them. Number 1, what are the frameworks and mechanisms needed for a robust regional cooperation in addressing non-traditional security issues? Number 2, how can technological advancement be leveraged to further such cooperation, as the Minister of Defense mentioned just now? But also how technology actually divides us, advanced nations and less advanced nations. I think that's a very important issue. And finally, how can political differences be set aside in collective efforts to overcome the common threat? To discuss these issues, we are very fortunate to have here with us 2 eminent speakers. Allow me to introduce them one by one. Our first speaker is Her Excellency, the Minister of Defense of Zimbabwe, the Honorable Opa Chamu Zipenge Muchinguri Kashiri. Ma'am, it's an honor to have you here with us, coming from so far away. Thank you. The Honorable Opa Chamu Muchinguri Kashiri was appointed as Minister of Defense and War Veteran Affairs in October 2018. She is the first female minister to be appointed to such a post. The Honorable Minister was educated in the United States and also in Zimbabwe. She was also a member of the National Unity Government of Zimbabwe from 2009 to 2013, in charge of monitoring political agreement among the various political groups in Zimbabwe, the ZANU, PF, MDC, and MDCT. So I think it's a very, very important post, and thank you for appointing a lady to mediate this troublesome gentleman. She was appointed as National Chairperson of ZANU-PF in 2017, also a very influential and powerful post. Prior to her current post, she has served as Minister of Higher Education, Science and Technology Development, and as Minister of Environment, Water and Climate. Our second speaker is His Excellency Dr. Jalal Shami Tufekci, Deputy Minister of Defense of the Republic of Turkey. Dr. Tufekci is Deputy Minister of Defense in charge of technical services, defense projects, military logistics, and national defense arms. Dr. Tufekci started his career in technical programs and scientific research in the United States. He was educated in Turkey and also in the USA. Dr. Tufekci is also an academic, having served at various universities in Turkey and outside. The most recent appointment being professor at Yildiz Technical University in Istanbul. So with that introduction, we will start with the forum, but before that, may I just remind the speakers that you are given 15 minutes, each of you, to present your views. And the question and answer will follow after all, or after both speakers have presented their views. So without further ado, may I now invite the Honorable Minister of Defense of Zimbabwe, Madam Opa Chamu Zipengi Muchinguri Kashiri. The floor is yours, Madam. Thank you.
Thank you. A very good morning to you all. I deserve an answer. A very good morning to you all. Thank you so much. Allow me to start by expressing my sincere appreciation to the government of the Republic of Malaysia, in particular the Minister of Defense, for inviting me and my delegation to participate at this very important forum with the theme non-traditional threats and also emerging technologies. It is indeed a very befitting platform which offers us an opportunity to share ideas and also experiences in the important area of defense and security, considering the transformative nature of the current global security challenges that we are currently facing. I want to discuss perhaps in a more systematic way. Usually we have prepared speeches. I will make reference to it and also at the same time responding to the questions that have been posed. My presentation will address the non-traditional security threats which are already highlighted, the pandemics, terrorism, natural disasters, transnational crimes, climate change, and also cyber crimes, which have become threats of our times. I will start with the pandemics and say that these threats are grappling, the world is grappling with the pandemics, which have had a negative impact on both public health and also national security. The recent COVID-19 pandemic has had devastating effects, which led to the deaths of millions of people and collapse of economies across the world. Although cholera in many parts of the world has not been traditionally regarded as a security threat, but this is becoming a deep concern, particularly to our countries in the southern hemisphere. There is a common recurrence of these outbreaks in some parts of Africa, including my country, Zimbabwe. And I strongly believe that we need to work together to strengthen healthcare systems. And this is in line with SDGs. If we are to achieve universal coverage and provision of safe and affordable medicines and also vaccines for all. We need also to work closely with international partners and organizations in order to access resources and also in research and development. I recognize the vital role that our defense forces play in responding to public health emergencies such as these pandemics. And at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic in Zimbabwe, our defense forces were among the frontline players in mitigating the effects of the pandemic by providing support to healthcare workers, enforcing quarantine measures, and ensuring that essential supplies reach the intended beneficiaries. The Zimbabwe Defense Forces, as part of its secondary role, is mandated under the Civil Protection Act, Chapter 10 of subsection 6 to provide military assistance to civil ministries during public health emergencies. There is therefore need to capacitate our defense and security forces to perform this secondary role of assisting civil ministries during such public emergencies, given the recurrence of these disasters over the past years. Terrorism. It has remained a major threat that requires a collaborative approach. Countries in our region, such as the Democratic Republic of Congo and Mozambique, have been plagued by terrorism. Currently, there is unregulated movement of illegal immigrants and refugees from regions that are affected by violent extremism to the southern region of Africa. And these threats transcend across territorial boundaries, and there is fear that the threat may spill over to other countries in the region. The terrorist activities are also sponsored through money laundering cartels in and around the world. We must enhance intelligence sharing, border security measures, use of drone technology, and mount joint military operations to combat this menace. As a SADC region, we have set up the Regional Counter-Terrorism Center based in Tanzania with the aim of ensuring enhanced coordination, strengthened participation, as well as fostering timely response to terrorism and violent extremism. On natural disasters such as El Nino-induced droughts that the Southern African region is currently experiencing pose a significant risk to food security in our region. The repercussions of natural disasters are found and have far-reaching effects, posing a significant threat to the well-being of our citizens and the stability of our regions. As we confront the challenges posed by natural disasters, it is imperative that we bolster our security cooperation efforts for effective responses. In the SADC region, we are glad that our defense forces have been collaborating closely during cyclones that affected the region, including the most devastating cyclone Idai, which ravaged Southern Africa in 2019. The defense forces played a pivotal role in coordinating emergency responses, providing logistical support and ensuring the safety and security of affected communities. In that regard, there is need to train our defense forces in disaster preparedness and management, as well as capacitating them with equipment so that they are in a position to respond to these calamities swiftly. Technology also is needed, particularly on early warning systems, so that we are able to move our people to safer places and ensure that in the process we save lives. On transnational crimes such as human trafficking, illegal migration, arms smuggling, drug trafficking involving cartels and smuggling of illegal goods are one aspect that require a coordinated international response, and these crimes pose a significant danger to national security due to their transnational nature as they disregard international norms. We must therefore strengthen law enforcement cooperation, enhance border controls, and support initiatives that address the root causes of these crimes in order to protect vulnerable populations affected by them. The 21st century security landscape demands a holistic approach that goes beyond traditional military considerations, addressing the intricate interplay of these multifaceted challenges. I hope I will stop here and expect questions, and I will attempt to answer them as they come. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We will have the Q&A after this, and now it is my pleasure to invite His Excellency Dr. Jalal Sami Tufekci, the Minister of Deputy Minister of Defense of the Republic of Turkey. Professor, you can use the podium, or if you would, okay, up to you. It's up to you. Oh, all right.
This button is for next slide. This button is back slide.
Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum. We'll start with a short video of some exhibition of our Turkish defense industry and our national defense of Turkey. always help me to warm up my speeches with some capabilities of Turkish defense products. Distinguished guests, colleagues and fellow security experts, I start with bringing you the greetings of Turkish people and especially my minister, His Excellency Yaşar Güler. He sent me in his place because he's very busy in his schedule. And I would like to thank Dr. Harun for the nice introduction. Today, I'm honored to be here to discuss the constantly evolving global security landscape. As the Minister Nordin asked, where do we start? I think we can start by understanding the current world setting. As you are all aware, the international environment has become increasingly precarious in recent years. This naturally compels nations to not only to work more closely with their immediate neighbors, but also forge new strategic partnerships with actors further afield. For instance, we recognize the paramount importance of fostering a secure and stable region as well as a peaceful globe. Reconciling differences and establishing a robust security architecture with our neighbors is not solely a bilateral matter, but a crucial factor in preserving global security on a broader scale. This is precisely why Turkey has prioritized diplomatic outreach and closer cooperation with its neighbor countries in the Black Sea and the Eastern Mediterranean. Looking ahead, Turkey remains committed to fostering constructive regional security dialogues and joint military exercises. These initiatives build trust, facilitate the exchange of vital resources, and ultimately present a more unified front against the complex and multifaceted challenges we collectively face. While geopolitical rivalries appear to be intensifying worldwide, we remain convinced that the potential for cooperation between nations is still strong enough to help mitigate global security concerns. However, the interdependency of the world today is undeniable. A dispute erupting in one corner of the globe can have ripple effects, sparking tensions or even triggering new conflicts in seemingly distant regions. For example, Africa was disproportionately affected by the collapse of the Grain Corridor Agreement, which ended after an increase in tension in the Russian-Ukraine war. Turkey had made great efforts to ensure the continuity of Grain Corridor in spite of the escalation. This initiative, by effectively curbing the impending food crisis, has also successfully averted a potential surge in migration to Europe. In addition, the hazardous maritime conditions in the Gulf of Aden caused by the Israeli-Hamas conflict caused major disruptions in the global trade. Now let me talk about the fight against terrorism. As you all aware, the PKK is a separatist terrorist organization and is responsible for the loss of more than 40,000 innocent lives. As you can see on the map, the PKK maintains an active presence in Turkey, Iraq, Iran, and Syria, as well as in several European countries. By operating under different aliases, they are misleading the international community and hindering efforts to combat their activities. For us, the various designations applied to this group, whether it be PKK, KCK, PYD, YPG, PJAK, YBS, YJS, or otherwise, all ultimately refer to the same terrorist organization with the same separatist ideology. They are all one and the same. They are all the PKK. This PKK does not represent the Kurdish people in any way, as they claim an ethnic background. Just as Daesh does not represent Muslims. We have witnessed this firsthand in our own neighborhood. The ongoing instability in the Middle East, for example, has unfortunately fueled extremism, and radicalism. Muslims have suffered the most from Daesh extremism. Daesh propagates a false narrative, distorting the real meaning of Islam. As a member of the global coalition against Daesh since its inception in 2014, Turkey has opened her airspace and bases in support of coalition's operations. Turkey has endured the devastating loss of more than 600 innocent lives in attacks carried out by Daesh. In August 2016, Turkey felt compelled to unilaterally carry out Operation Euphrates Shield, during which approximately 4,500 of the most radical Daesh terrorists were neutralized in Syria and Iraq. The Turkish armed forces stand as the only NATO and coalition army to have fought Daesh on the ground in close quarters combat. Turkey also prevented over 100,000 foreign terrorist fighters from entering Syria over the Turkish border and deported about 10,000 terrorists back to their country of origin. Despite these challenges, the prospect of cooperation between nations remains remarkably strong. In Turkey, we firmly believe that we can overcome these obstacles through dialogue and commitment to shared security. From combating transnational terrorism to mitigating the impacts of instability, regional cooperation is the cornerstone of a safer and more secure future for all of us. To combat the rise of extremism and terrorism, Turkey based a NATO-accredited Center of Excellence Defense Against Terrorism, or shortly we call it COE, serve as a vital asset. This Excellency Center serves as a think tank and is dedicated to formulating effective counter-terrorism strategies. They also provide educational and training programs, equipping individuals with the knowledge and skills to confront these threats. Furthermore, this center plays a crucial role in coordinating counter-terrorism training across NATO member states, fostering a unified approach. I encourage all countries to collaborate with the center in this vital mission by sending participants or contributing lecturers. Together, we can build a safer and more secure world. Now, if I mention the transnational threats in the connected world, in today's world, we face an increasingly complex and multifaceted security landscape. Transnational crimes such as terrorism and drug trafficking weave a web of destruction and instability across borders. Cyber threats, with their ability to cripple critical infrastructure and steal sensitive information, represent a new disruptive danger. Natural disasters like the devastating and floods we recently experienced in our region endanger lives, livelihoods, and regional stability. And pandemics like COVID-19 have served as stark reminder of our interconnected vulnerability. Now, if I mention about our Turkish defense industry, the ever-evolving landscape of global threats, from cyber attacks to regional conflicts, necessitates a robust national defense infrastructure. In this regard, the Turkish defense industry has emerged as a significant player striving for self-sufficiency while promoting international cooperation. Over the past 20 years, we increasingly prioritize research and development, and our level of domestic production has reached 80%. The quality and compatibility of production is at NATO standards. Turkish defense industry products have proven their effectiveness and reliability in the field, including in rough terrain and under severe weather conditions. Turkish defense industry is participating in the DSA exhibition as we present today, starting today, with over 35 companies. I advise all of you to visit and experience our defense products. In conclusion, the global security landscape is fraught with challenges from extremist groups to transnational threats like pandemics, cyber attacks, and drug trafficking. To effectively address these issues, a comprehensive approach is necessary. Institutions like the Excellencies Center in Istanbul I presented to you play a vital role in fostering international cooperation in counter-terrorism efforts. As the Minister Nordic mentioned, holistic solutions are needed as His Excellency presented. Turkey's burgeoning defense industry, with its focus on self-sufficiency and international collaboration, further strengthens global security. By working together to address these shared threats, we can overcome political differences and build a future based on human security and cooperation. We can transition from a world marked by division to one where collaboration can pave the way for a more equitable and harmonious global security. In conclusion, I sincerely thank the organizers of this Putrajaya Forum for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to share my experience. I particularly thank His Excellency Minister Nordin and all the Malaysian people. Thank you very much.
Dr. Jalal. Before we proceed to the Q&A session, may I just recap some of the main points given by the two speakers. The Minister of Defense of Zimbabwe talked about, number one, the transformative nature of technology. And this has been also highlighted by Dr. Jalal in his presentation, as well as in your introduction, a very, very robust introduction to the role of defense industry and technology in mitigating all these threats. Now, secondly, we noted that the issues facing countries, whether in the Middle East or in Africa or in Asia, we face similar threats: transnational crime, pandemics, etc., etc. And thirdly, that both the speakers have established the need for cooperation among nations and have shown how their countries have done with that. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, may I now open the floor for discussion. But before that, please state your name and institution. And secondly, please be brief with your question. And if you want, you may specify the question to whom it is addressed, to our two speakers. We have about half an hour, correct? Yeah. All right. Can we have the first two questions? Please raise your hand.
Testing. Assalamualaikum and good morning. I'm Brigadier General Shahril from Malaysian Army. My question is related to the non-traditional threats. First and foremost, I would like to thank you, both of you, for your good presentation. Very informative. My question is that how a developing country can face the dynamic or uncertainty of the traditional threats in terms of a nation as a whole. For example, how the
agencies within the nation, the government agencies, the private sectors, the public sectors, including citizens, how can they work together in facing the pandemic or the uncertainties of this traditional threat? Thank you.
We'll take one more question before I let the speakers answer. Okay.
Hello, I am Colonel Suleiman Muhammad from the Federal Republic of Nigeria, currently attending the National Resilience College. My question goes to the Defense Minister from Zimbabwe. As regards the transnational crimes, especially as has to do with human and drug trafficking, I wanted to know your view whether it is right for us to say that these are ramifications of bad governance and weak institutions, corruption, and what have you, and what can be done to ameliorate this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. First question, Dr. Jalal or Honorable?
Should I go first? Okay. Thank you. So if I understand it correctly, how to overcome traditional or non-traditional challenges and how to collaborate. Well, it has two faceted, if I understand correctly the question, whether it be nationally within your own country and also globally. As I stated in my speech, a global collaboration is necessary because as an engineer, I can tell you that you would need an infinite amount of force to control everything, which is, of course, not possible, as we see with the superpowers of world is also facing challenges in the conflicts around the world. In terms of national collaborations, what we usually face in developing countries, as we faced in Turkey as well, that institution, they should have a single heartbeat to work together to come over the challenges. Because whatever you are trying to counter, whether it be terrorism or other illegal means, you would need cost-effective solutions because you would need money and budget all this money to work together to bring up your industry or strengthen your forces. If the institutions disperse and cannot come together, this, of course, will not be possible. For this, policymakers have an important job of bringing these institutions together. And also, to counter the corruption is important because use of money is, of course, a power, and the corruption is tailing this everywhere. So working together is the key within the country and globally to set the world peace. That's what I'd like to mention.
The second question is addressed specifically to you, Madam.
Thank you so much for the question directed to me to do with transnational crime, specifically on the issue of drug trafficking, which to us in Zimbabwe is a new phenomenon which has bedeviled us. And of course, we have had now to look at our own legislation to look at the best practices also in other countries, and also ensuring that as much as possible, since this is new, we need also to learn from others. And we want to thank also Interpol, which has Zimbabwe as its regional center. So for us, we have benefited immensely by getting information about how other countries are dealing with this particular nuisance, I should say. Firstly, we realized that these drugs are coming in through mainly unmanned border areas because our borders are so porous, and so they are taking advantage of this situation confronting us. So we have had to employ drones to make sure that since we are unable to deploy adequate forces in terms of manpower, so the issue of technology becomes very key to make sure that we use technology, but still, in order to react, we need also technology, even human manpower. What we have done is to appreciate that this is not a problem for government alone. Multifaceted, and it requires the involvement of all stakeholders. So a national committee was set up which involves all the stakeholders to make sure that even at the lowest structures of our systems at the village level, because this is where the crime is being encouraged or promoted. And so it's affecting our schools, even the churches and beyond. And so we made sure that this committee involved every area, and it required us to change some regulations, legislation through Parliament to make sure that there are statutory instruments that are in place to make sure that we put mechanisms in place at the points of entry, and to make sure that our enforcement systems are established everywhere. They are decentralized to make sure that we deal with the problem as they arise throughout our country. We realize this is coming from our neighboring countries and beyond. Mostly people that fly into the country, some that use different means of transportation. So strengthening of our borders, sharing information with our neighbors. And I'm pleased that within SADC itself, we have taken up this issue seriously and put some structures in place to make sure that there's sharing of information, there are joint border patrols, and from time to time at summit level, these issues are discussed. So we are indeed dealing with this issue. Is complex, and the drugs that were never used to have are now coming into the country. So it means legislation, training, also sharing of information. And Zimbabwe believes we cannot handle this problem alone. It's a regional, it's a continental, and international. And we hope that as we discuss these issues, we stand to benefit as Zimbabwe from information that we'll gather from this meeting. I thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Yes.
Good morning, sir. Brigadier General Adjutant from Malaysian Army. My question related to current irregular war, non-traditional threats, is a transnational threats. The term is weaponized immigrants, refers to a strategy where a state or non-state actor deliberately manipulates migrants' patterns to achieve specific political, military, or economic objectives. This can involve encouraging or facilitating the mass movement of people into another country to create economic, social, or political pressures. Primary aim is to destabilize a target company, or target country. For example, a country might facilitate the movement of large group to migrate towards a neighbor country borders to create economic and social challenge, strain public service, and incite political unrest. The impact is economic stress, social tension, and security concerns. These weaponized immigrants poses significant ethical and legal challenges, particularly regarding the rights and welfare of the migrants themselves, who may be unaware that they are being used as tools in broader geopolitical strategies. So it is a transnational threat. Based on your knowledge and experience, could you share your insight related to this issue, and what ways can we do more to enhance the security cooperation related to this issue? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Are you addressing your question to any particular, or maybe both speakers?
Can any speakers?
All right. Okay. So both speakers can respond to that.
Thank you for that very important question. In Zimbabwe, I will use Zimbabwe as an example, that as a result of terrorist activities in Mozambique and also in the DRC, we have had quite a number of immigrants that come in to Zimbabwe as refugees. They pass Zambia into Zimbabwe, and oftentimes they want to go to South Africa. So in such a situation, they don't respect borders at all. They use unorthodox means, and it poses challenges, because I don't know which resolution of the United Nations which requires that if there are any political challenges, you can only go to the next country and not passing. So it means if they are from DRC, if there are problems, they must go to Zambia. But we have seen them disregarding that, coming to Zimbabwe and even going to South Africa. And what we have done in this situation at Security, Defense and Security, we use our forums to exchange information and now escalate in terms of border patrols, just to make sure that we are doing so jointly. And we have also, as I indicated earlier on, that technology has become quite handy to our countries given the volatile situations. So regional cooperation is always a must. And there is also training now to make sure that we have the same understanding, and oftentimes we do participate in games just to make sure that we are at the same page within the region itself, meeting regularly. So it is a serious problem that we have. As you indicated, some leave not because of political situations, Some come because of economic reasons, looking for greener pastures. But some also come in as intelligence officers, pursuing certain individuals in these countries. So information, intelligence information always comes in handy. So no country can succeed without cooperating with other countries in the areas. I thank you.
So if I may answer, taking over from Her Excellency, Minister of National Defense, Zimbabwe, and I would like to give you the example of Turkey facing the migration. I think Turkey is one of the countries that suffer from the mass migration a lot. In the southern border of Syria, after instability started in Syria years ago, mass amount of people tried to migrate to Turkey and from over Turkey to Europe and different countries, and we faced a lot of difficulties in terms of border security. So we classify such migrants into two and handle it with care in our the country policy as well as our ministry's policy, along with the Ministry of Interior's policy. So one classification is about people migrating because they are escaping from the war and they want a place to live safely. And the second classification is terrorist groups. So these terrorist groups, they exist with some quite some support, and they are being used as proxy against Turkey. So that is dealt with in a military understanding, while the first class is dealt with creating a buffer region in the south of Turkey. So when we do this buffer, it is not only trying to prevent these people by the brute force. They are people like you and me, and they need a life there. So in this buffer zone that we created in the south of Turkey, a new establishment of places to live, not only to live, eat, but also to go to schools, to live social lives. There are environments that created for it. This, of course, brings another challenge of economics that costed our country a lot. So we negotiated with the developed countries, but honestly, we didn't get the support that we needed. But of course, Turkey is strong and it is trying its best to keep this region secure. And I should also say that my message to you and to the world is that it is about humanity, not just your own security. To secure yourself, you have to make the others feel secure as well. If they are insecure, they are not gonna let you stay secure. So in that respect, the policy that we apply in the southern border of Turkey should be taken as an example, but I also would like to readdress that more global or United Nations support needed for such efforts. Turkey is struggling by itself there, but a global support and collaboration is necessary in that endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jala. I have received some subtle signal that we should stop here. Anyway, before we leave, I would like to thank very much our speakers. I think we have learned a lot from you about things that we didn't know much, being far away in terms of geography. And what we can take home is that we share the same, many of the issues and problems, and it's also good to know that states are willing to cooperate with each other to mitigate all these problems. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in our appreciation of our two distinguished speakers with a round of applause.
And thank you, Professor Rohanas Harun, for moderating this discussion. We'd like to invite all members of the panel and moderator to kindly remain on stage, as I now invite Major General Dato' Haji Yaakob bin Haji Samiran, Chief Executive of Midas, to kindly accompany Dato' Sri Ishamisha, Secretary General to the Ministry of Defence, Malaysia, in presenting mementos of appreciation to our panelists and moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in showing our appreciation to members of the panel. First, to Her Excellency the Honorable Opa Chamo Zipange, Mushiguri Kashiri, the Minister of Defence, Zimbabwe. Thank you, Madam Minister. Please kindly remain on stage, as next we show our appreciation to His Excellency the Honorable Dr. Jalal Sami Tufekci, the Deputy Minister of Defence from the Republic of Turkey. And we'd also like to thank Professor Rohanas Harun, our moderator, for guiding us through this very spirited discussion. I'd like to invite all members of the panel and moderator to kindly pose for a quick group photograph with our distinguished guests, the Secretary General to the Ministry of Defence, Malaysia, and the Chief Executive of Midas, to wrap up the session. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in showing our appreciation to Session 1 panelists and moderator addressing towards enhanced non-traditional security cooperation. As we invite our panelists, moderator, and our distinguished guests to kindly return to their seats, please allow us a moment or two to turn over the stage settings for our second session. Ladies and gentlemen, Session 2 will begin momentarily as we address applying emerging technologies in improving military and defense diplomacy. Please kindly stay with us. We'll begin in just a short moment. Ladies and gentlemen, we shall begin session 2. Non-traditional threats and emerging technologies, applying emerging technologies in improving military and defense diplomacy. We have quite the illustrious panel, and I would like to now invite our moderator, Professor Dr. K.S. Nathan, who is a Senior Research Fellow at the Asia-Europe Institute, AEI, at the University of Malaya, Kuala Lumpur, to kindly join us on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Dr. K.S. Nathan.
Okay. Happy morning to all our participants, ladies and gentlemen. It's such a pleasure to be here again to chair session 2. I remember chairing a session of the Putrajaya Forum 10 years earlier in 2014. So it's really good to be here to have this opportunity to chair a very important session dealing with the emerging new military technologies and how these technologies can be converted into actual application for military diplomacy, the national interest, and foreign policy. I think it is mainly the link how we deal with these technologies and what kind of confidence we have in appropriating them and using them to promote our national interest and also national security. Well, as you know, ladies and gentlemen, there are actually at least 8 major military technological trends that are ongoing. And I think as military specialists, you are quite aware of them. Artificial intelligence, advanced defense equipment, military robotics, and autonomous systems. Then you also have Internet of Military Things, cyber warfare, immersive technologies, additive manufacturing, and of course, big data and analytics. So in this broad trend of these various technological developments, probably artificial intelligence really will stand out. Autonomous systems, quantum technologies, biotechnologies, and human advancement, hypersonic systems, space, novel materials and manufacturing, energy and propulsion, and next generation communications networks. These are, I think, very important new emerging technologies that will directly impact international relations. We already can see the impact now. All you have to do is look at the Russia-Ukraine war. And you can see how drone technology is determining the pattern of success and failures in specific military environments. I think the drones are going to play an even more important part in the next few years when we engage in military conflict and warfare, and they can be decisive in terms of how militaries operate. In fact, AI is actually supercharging militaries, especially in the logistics area, as you know. So you can see what these drones are actually doing. They are carrying tremendous amounts of information that is being channeled to these drones from the command and control center. And they are behaving like human beings to identify targets and knock them out. So one can therefore be a little concerned about how we deal with this. But I feel that we as scholars, analysts, statesmen, leaders of countries, how do we deal with these new technologies? They're going to be there. We cannot wish them away. So it is the kind of position we take. Basically, I would say there is a psychological dimension to how we deal with critical technologies. And that is, you can either decide to be proactive or reactive. You can either be positive or negative about how you deal with it. You can see opportunity rather than threats. And you can also develop a certain level of confidence in dealing with them rather than trepidation. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is how I think these emerging new technologies will impact on military diplomacy. We are so used to understanding diplomacy in the context of the nation-state system. If you ask Professor Morgenthau, of course he has passed away, Politics Among Nations, he has framed the entire discussion based on conventional threats. But today, as you know, in session 1, you've seen how non-traditional threats are impacting nation-states and how they are shaping the kinds of technologies we need to use in order to overcome the threats. I think the Turkish delegate really gave quite a good presentation on that. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me very briefly introduce our speakers, but let me call them up first so that they can come to the stage. We have, okay, let me introduce them first. Okay, we have the first speaker, the Honorable General Tan Sri Dato Sri Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman. Can you kindly come forward and take your seat? And I will also call the other speakers, the other two speakers also to come forward. The second speaker will be the Honorable General Daniel R. Håkansson from the United States. And our third speaker, who is more a scholar and academic from the University of Malaya, Dr. Su Y Mon. Now, okay, a brief introduction to all of them so that we don't have to repeat their biodata. You probably also have them. But let me very briefly introduce each speaker, and then after that, we can begin the session. Okay, the Honorable General Tan Sri Dato Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman is now the Chief of Defense Forces, Malaysia, and he assumed this post on the 6th of September 2023. Of course, he has a very distinguished record, having risen from the ranks and having held many positions. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. He has been also an infantry officer in the Royal Malay Regiment, and then Army Field Commander, Commander of the 3rd Infantry Division, and also General Officer Commanding of the Army Training and Doctrine Command. Now, General Tan Sri Mohammed was appointed the 25th Deputy Chief of Army and subsequently promoted to the 29th Chief of Army on 22nd March 2023. So the General has a tremendous responsibility in managing our national security, and I'm sure he'll do a tremendous job. Our second speaker is the Honorable General Daniel R. Håkansson, Chief of the National Guard Bureau of the United States of America. Of course, General Hawkinson himself has got a very distinguished career and record in the National Guard. He advises the National Security Council in that position, including the President. And he was also the 11th Vice Chief of the National Guard Bureau. General Hawkinson graduated from the United States Military Academy and has served in several capacities, including in the Middle East, in Iraq, and also in Afghanistan. So he has participated in Operation Cause, Enduring Freedom, and Iraqi Freedom. So he has a lot of ground experience besides his theoretical knowledge and understanding of the field of what the National Security Council can do and the role of the National Guard Bureau. And our third speaker, Dr. Su Wai Mon. She's now a senior lecturer at the Faculty of Law in the University of Malaya, where I'm also based. Dr. Su, of course, has specialized in maritime security and law enforcement. She holds a PhD in that field. She obtained it from the International University of Malaysia in Gombak. She also teaches public international law and is currently involved in ocean research, maritime cybersecurity, and also formulating legal frameworks to deal with this particular marine environment. So she has a special interest in artificial intelligence, in maritime security, cybersecurity in the maritime domain, and also submarine cables governance. So very relevant to have three different people who will all provide a very comprehensive approach as to how we deal with these emerging new technologies. Do we see them as a threat, or do we see them as an opportunity? Do we see them as an asset, or do we see them as a risk? So there is clearly a psychological dimension to this, and statesmen and individuals all will have to deal with the realities that are emerging. And it is quite clear that countries that have this national confidence and have the research dimension will be moving ahead of the other countries. And we know the leading countries in the world in this field are also the major powers of the world. So in ASEAN, we do have one member that's actually ahead and is striving to always be in the first line to deal with this kind of new technologies. And if I can mention, it is really Singapore. So we can see, therefore, it is an ASEAN contribution. What Singapore has, I believe, is also an ASEAN contribution, because ASEAN is a community of 10 members, and we do share a lot of intelligence and capabilities. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I think we can begin our session. And let me start with our general first to make his presentation. General? You have about 15 minutes, yeah? And you can come up and speak here, or you can also deliver from your seat.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Esteemed moderator, Professor Dr. K.S. Nathan, Senior Research Fellow at the Asia-Europe Institute, University Malaya, eminent panelists of this highly anticipated topic, General Daniel R. Hawkinson, Chief of the National Guard Bureau, United States of America, and Dr. Su Wai Mon, Senior Lecturer at the Faculty of Law, University Malaya, and a Research Fellow at the University Malaya, Malaysian Center of Regulatory Studies. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera and good morning to all. Praise be to Allah the Almighty, by whose grace and blessings allowed us to gather this morning to deliberate on an issue of vital concern, that is, applying emerging technologies in improving military and defense diplomacy. Malaysia's defense sector is undergoing a significant transformation, driven by the rapid advancement of emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, robotics, space technologies, unmanned aerial systems, and more. This evolution is not isolated, but is deeply connected with global geopolitics, influencing defense strategies, military capabilities, and security paradigms. Artificial intelligence, or AI, has emerged as a game changer in defense, offering capabilities ranging from enhanced situational awareness to autonomous decision-making. In Malaysia, AI applications are being explored to strengthen defense capabilities across various domains, including intelligence analysis and cybersecurity. However, as AI becomes more integrated into defense systems, concerns regarding ethical usage, accountability, and the risk of autonomous weapons proliferation necessitate careful consideration and alignment with global norms and regulations. Robotics is another frontier where Malaysia's defense perspective is transforming significantly. Military robotics, including unmanned aerial vehicles or UAVs, are revolutionizing intelligence, reconnaissance, and surveillance. Malaysia's defense forces are leveraging robotics to enhance operational efficiency, minimize risk to personnel, and address emerging threats in complex environments. Yet, the proliferation of military robotics also raises ethical dilemmas, such as the potential for autonomous warfare and the need for human oversight in decision-making processes. Space technologies have emerged as a critical enabler of Malaysia's defense capabilities, offering satellite communications, remote sensing, and navigation capabilities. The Malaysian Space Agency spearheads efforts to develop indigenous satellite technologies and leverage space-based assets for defense applications. Satellite imagery and reconnaissance are crucial in border surveillance, maritime security, and disaster response, enhancing Malaysia's situational awareness and operational effectiveness. Moreover, Malaysia's strategic investments in space technologies reflect its aspiration for technological self-reliance and resilience amidst evolving geopolitical dynamics. Drones or unmanned aerial systems have revolutionized military operations, offering cost-effective and versatile platforms for intelligence gathering, surveillance, and precision strikes. In Malaysia, unmanned aerial systems are utilized for border surveillance, counter-terrorism operations, and disaster management, augmenting defense capabilities and enhancing operational flexibility. However, the widespread use of unmanned aerial systems poses challenges, including airspace security threats, regulatory compliance, and privacy concerns. Malaysia is actively addressing these challenges by formulating robust regulations and acquiring counter-drone technologies to mitigate potential risks. In the context of ongoing global geopolitics, Malaysia's defense perspective on emerging technologies is shaped by strategic imperatives, regional security dynamics, and technological competition among major powers. Malaysia seeks to leverage these technologies to enhance its defense capabilities, safeguard its sovereignty, and contribute to regional stability. However, the nation must navigate geopolitical complexities, technological dependencies, and ethical considerations to ensure that its defense engagements align with its national interests and values. Ladies and gentlemen, harnessing emerging technologies to bolster defense diplomacy marks a significant shift towards fostering regional stability, encouraging cooperation, and tackling common security challenges. By advocating for policies at both regional and international levels that support these objectives, Malaysia can pave the way for a more effective and inclusive approach to defense diplomacy, such as, firstly, bilateral and multilateral agreements on technology transfer. Malaysia supports the development of bilateral and multilateral agreements to facilitate responsible transfer and sharing of emerging military technologies among nations. These agreements prioritize principles such as transparency, non-proliferation, and adherence to international law. Secondly, ethical norms and standards for AI and robotics. With AI and robotics increasingly integrated into military operations, Malaysia contributes to global efforts to develop ethical norms and standards for their use. This involves ensuring human oversight, accountability, and adherence to international humanitarian law. Thirdly, space governance framework. Recognizing the crucial role of space technologies in modern military operations, Malaysia is engaging actively in developing international governance frameworks for space activities. This includes addressing issues like orbital debris management, enhancing space situational awareness, and promoting the peaceful use of outer space. Fourthly, regulation of autonomous weapons systems. In response to the proliferation of autonomous weapon systems, Malaysia advocates for international regulations that maintain human control and ensure accountability in their deployment. And finally, cybersecurity cooperation. Given the escalating threat of cyber attacks, Malaysia prioritizes collaborating with regional and international counterparts to strengthen cybersecurity. This involves sharing information, building capacity, and conducting joint exercises to enhance cyber resilience and safeguard critical infrastructure. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, cooperation and collaboration among states in developing new technologies are vital for fostering innovation, enhancing defense capabilities, and addressing shared security challenges. As we stand on the brink of a new era defined by rapid technological advancements, nations must unite to harness the transformative potential of emerging technologies for the collective benefit of humanity. Firstly, states can collaborate through bilateral and multilateral cooperation agreements to facilitate joint research and development initiatives. By pooling resources, expertise, and infrastructure, Nations can accelerate technological innovation and achieve breakthroughs that would be unattainable individually. These agreements should prioritize transparency, accountability, and equitable access to technology to ensure that benefits are shared across all participating states. Secondly, technology sharing frameworks can promote the responsible exchange of defense-related technologies among states. By establishing clear guidelines and mechanisms for technology transfer, nations can foster collaboration while safeguarding against the misuse or spread of sensitive technologies. Open and transparent technology sharing frameworks enable states to leverage each other's strength and address common security challenges more effectively. Thirdly, capacity building programs enhance states' capabilities to develop and utilize new technologies. By investing in education, training, and skill development initiatives, nations can empower their citizens with the knowledge and expertise to utilize emerging technologies for defense and security. Capacity building programs should be inclusive and accessible to all states, regardless of their level of technological advancement, to ensure that no nation is left behind in the technological race. Fourthly, adherence to ethical standards and human rights principles is paramount in developing and deploying new technologies. States must collaborate to establish clear ethical guidelines and regulatory frameworks that govern the responsible use of emerging technologies, particularly in sensitive areas such as artificial intelligence, robotics, and autonomous weapons systems. By upholding ethical standards and human rights principles, nations can ensure that technology development serves the greater good and contributes to global peace and security. Lastly, diplomatic engagement and dialogue are essential for building trust, resolving conflicts, and promoting state cooperation. Through open and constructive dialogue, nations can address differences, share perspectives, and identify areas of mutual interest in developing new technologies. Diplomatic engagement should be inclusive and participatory, involving stakeholders from government, industry, academia, and civil society to ensure that diverse viewpoints are considered in decision-making processes. The military industry is essential in advancing and applying emerging technologies for defense and security. As we navigate the rapidly evolving landscape of technological innovation, the military sector needs to align its efforts with national priorities, foster collaboration with government agencies, academia, and the private sector, and uphold ethical standards to ensure that advancements benefit society as a whole. The military industry can invest in research and development initiatives focused on emerging technologies to contribute these goals. By dedicating resources to innovative projects such as artificial intelligence, robotics, space technologies, and unmanned aerial systems, the military industry can drive technological breakthroughs that enhance defense capabilities and address pressing security challenges. Collaboration with research institutions and universities can facilitate knowledge exchange and accelerate innovation. Moreover, the military industry can facilitate technology transfer and share best practices with other stakeholders. Drawing on its expertise and experience, the military sector can support capacity building programs and offer technical assistance to government agencies, defense forces, and industry partners. This collaborative approach can help build local capabilities, enhance interoperability, and foster a culture of innovation within the defense ecosystem. Ethical considerations and human rights principles must be paramount in developing and deploying new technologies. As custodians of advanced weaponry and surveillance systems, the military industry is responsible for ensuring that technology is used responsibly and in line with international norms and standards. This entails guarding against the misuse of emerging technologies for malicious purposes and promoting transparency in technology development and deployment. Furthermore, the military industry can contribute to defense diplomacy efforts by championing international collaboration and cooperation. The military sector can foster trust and forge partnerships with other nations by participating in bilateral and multilateral cooperation agreements, technology sharing frameworks, and joint research initiatives. This collaborative approach can enhance regional security, foster stability, and support global peacekeeping efforts. Ultimately, the military industry must embrace
General, you
innovation
have
and
about
adaptability.
1 more minute.
Yeah. Closing in. To thrive in increasingly complex and dynamic security environment, by embracing emerging technologies and cultivating a culture of continuous improvement, the military industry can lead the way in defense innovation and ensure that Malaysia maintains a competitive edge on the global stage. In conclusion, as we navigate the intricate landscape of emerging technologies and their impact on defense and security, it becomes evident that collaboration, innovation, and ethical considerations are of utmost importance. By fostering collaboration among stakeholders, prioritizing research and development, and promoting ethical principles, we can effectively address the challenges and seize the opportunities posed by these advancing technologies. Additionally, recognizing the role of emerging technologies in improving military and defense diplomacy, Malaysia is committed to leveraging this advancement to enhance global security, global stability, and foster cooperation among nations, hence paving the way for a safer and more prosperous future for all. On that note, I end my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, General. Yeah, you've kept your time with just under 20 minutes. Yes, I think it's a very comprehensive and very rich presentation. It's also typical of Malaysia's approach to emphasize regional security, to emphasize inclusivity, and also especially pay attention to the importance of international law, especially international humanitarian law. You can see what is happening to international humanitarian law and its lack of efficacy in the Middle East, especially in the Israel-Gaza war. So we need to tighten international institutions, the role of the United Nations, and this is where I think in terms of our own region, greater emphasis to ASEAN, ASEAN regional security, ASEAN cooperation, which as you know has been very, very good. And here is where I think the ASEAN countries can share, as the General has said. Those countries that are more advanced in these critical technologies can share with the less advanced and together build what I would call cooperative, inclusive, common security that will benefit all their citizens in this region. And you also mentioned about ethical standards, and I think that's also important. I remember that we are quite conscious, and we also take a realistic view of international relations. Diplomacy is as effective as deterrence. Actually, if you flip the coin of diplomacy, the other side is deterrence. You cannot talk about diplomacy without deterrence. You must have this very, very robust capability to sort of energize your diplomacy with credible deterrence. And I think General Hokansan also will agree. And you will remember that way back in the 1970s, I think it was President Ronald Reagan, 80s actually, He made an agreement with Gorbachev, who was the president of the Soviet Union at that time, intermediate nuclear forces agreement, and he told President Gorbachev, yes, Mr. President, we trust you, but there must be verification. Trust and verification go together. As much as diplomacy and deterrence also go together. So when we look at any issue, always look at both sides of the coin, and then you will see the balance. And in dealing with critical technologies, this has to be our approach. To be brave in dealing with these issues that are emerging, but at the same time to be also concerned over the threats that these technologies can pose. And I think General Håkansson will give us more information and enlighten us on the way he sees the critical technologies and how they translate into national security, foreign policy, and the national interest of the United States. General Håkansson, the floor is yours.
Great. Were they able to get the video on here? Oh, okay. Thank you. Just a quick run around if you're not familiar with the National Guard of the United States, and also it's later in the morning and I have not had coffee for a few minutes, so I thought it would be good to start with. Good morning, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank General Mohammed Abdurrahman for the invitation to participate in today's panel. I'm pleased to be speaking with you and Dr. Su this morning. It's an honor to join you at DSA. Looking at the size and scope of this conference, one thing is clear. Ours is a shared world with shared challenges and opportunities. We are not just connected, we are intertwined, and we must be united in the pursuit of security, stability, and peace across the globe. It is a task larger than any single nation, and as emerging technologies intensify and accelerate both the risks and opportunities before us, the relationships between nations, between allies and partners, has never been more important. So today, I'd like to talk about how the United States National Guard is building those relationships, how those relationships build capability and capacity, related to emerging technologies for our allies and partners, and how these connections promote security and stability, peace and prosperity. The State Partnership Program, or SPP, is the most productive, cost-effective security cooperation agreement you've maybe never heard of, and it's improving military and defense diplomacy all around the world. The SPP formally pairs a state's National Guard with a partner nation's military, security forces, and as you saw in the video, disaster response organizations. Today we have 92 partnerships with 106 nations around the world. All 50 of our states, 3 of our territories, Guam, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands, and the District of Columbia, have at least one partner nation. As a brief history, the State Partnership Program began after the collapse of the Soviet Union. As they emerged from behind the Iron Curtain, former Soviet states looked to reform their militaries, moving away from a communist system towards democracy and civilian control of their armed forces. Because of our legacy within the National Guard as state militias, and because it would seem less provocative to Russia at the time, the National Guard was the obvious choice to lead these engagements. In addition, the Guard is experienced with disaster response, search and rescue, and civil-military relationships, which were all of great interest to the former Soviet states at that time. And so in 1993, the first 3 state partnerships were formed: Estonia with Maryland, Latvia with Michigan, and Lithuania with Pennsylvania. Today, there are multiple state partnerships in every region of the world, and we'll add 7 new partner nations: Saudi Arabia, Finland, Sweden, Tanzania, Gabon, Sierra Leone, and Palau in 2024. The pairing of states with a nation are not random. Demographics, economics, military size, and composition are all factored in. This helps establish a sense of commonality and make the partnerships beneficial for both parties. And over the years, we've seen some truly inspired pairings. For instance, Mongolia and the Alaska National Guard share similar climate challenges, geography, and vast natural resources. Rhode Island and Timor-Leste share a coastal climate and Portuguese heritage. And though the partnership between Palau and the Guam National Guard is one of our newest, it is rooted in shared ancestry and culture that spans the millennia. In 2023 alone, more than 9,000 Guardsmen completed 1,500 worldwide SPP engagements. But as impressive as the numbers may be, they only tell a small part of the SPP story. The best stories are about people, because the State Partnership Program is truly about people. It's about mutually beneficial relationships where we learn from each other. It's about finding commonality across cultures and languages. It's about partnerships. It's about cooperation that endures for 30 years and counting. You can find examples in every one of our combatant commands. One of my greatest honors as Chief of the National Guard Bureau is having the opportunities to witness these examples and see the impact of this program all around the world. Last year, I visited Hanoi, Vietnam, where the Oregon National Guard was training with a delegation from the Vietnamese National Committee for Incident, Disaster Response, and Search and Rescue. Disaster response and search and rescue are exercises that we both learn from each other. This allowed both of us to improve our ability to respond to natural disasters and communicate effectively with our key civilian agencies. This visit was especially significant to me as an Oregon Guardsman. Since a partnership between Vietnam and the Oregon National Guard began more than a decade ago, I've seen how the relationship between our Guardsmen and our Vietnamese partners has grown. I first visited Vietnam as Oregon's Adjutant General in 2014, just 2 years after the partnership began, and I'm proud to see how it has evolved. In fact, during my visit, the Vietnamese counterparts that I worked with in 2014, who had all since retired, all traveled to see me, a testament to how these partnerships build relationships that endure and develop over time. I also had the opportunity to witness our Guardsmen and their partners in action at the African Lion training exercise in 2021. It was one of my first overseas travels, and I was excited by the opportunity to see our Guardsmen and service members from 9 partner nations training side by side. One of the nations, Morocco, the host of the event, had been partnered with the Utah National Guard for nearly 2 decades. Utah and Morocco cooperate on combined arms capabilities, including special forces, attack helicopters, artillery, and fighter aircraft. Other exchanges include humanitarian demining, emergency medicine, disaster response, and non-commissioned officer development. Less than a year into their partnership, Morocco was struck by a devastating earthquake, but less than 72 hours later, the Utah National Guard delivered emergency relief supplies with their KC-135 refueling aircraft. Morocco has shown staunch support for their security cooperation relationship with the Utah National Guard, which makes our populations more secure. This partnership has promoted lasting friendship, deepened understanding, and cultural appreciation between the people of the United States and Morocco. And that's because these partnerships are an exchange where we work together, learn from each other, and help strengthen each other. In December of 2022, I traveled to Ecuador as part of the South American Defense Conference. Ecuador is partnered with the state of Kentucky, a partnership that's been reinvigorated by shared challenges in recent years. Large-scale disasters are an ongoing concern for both Ecuador and Kentucky. And while Kentucky National Guard responded to historic flooding in 2022 and 2023, they also trained to respond to earthquakes, given their proximity to a major fault line in the United States. And in their training, they looked to their state partner, Ecuador, who has experienced many of the same disasters. But they don't just train disaster response expertise. In June of last year, our non-commissioned instructors from Kentucky met with senior non-commissioned instructors from Ecuador's Army and Air Force on how we would best treat our service members. It was the first of a growing number of all-enlisted subject matter exchanges. Now, by these examples, you might think that SPP is primarily focused on disaster response. After all, no one is immune to the challenges of climate change or the role and impact of humanitarian response missions for our nation's militaries. The geographic diversity of the United States give us a broad range of climate challenges, from earthquakes to hurricanes to floods to wildfires, challenges our partners share. But working together, we can exchange best practices and learn from each other so we can better prepare for, respond to, and mitigate disasters wherever or whenever they may be. But climate change is not our only shared challenge. We are all interconnected in the digital age, from our satellite communications to the internet. As cyberspace becomes a critical warfighting domain, the benefits of our partnership extend into the digital realm as well. One example is Poland, who has partnered with the Illinois National Guard. In recent years, particularly in light of the cyber threats posed by Russia, Poland began seriously hardening its cyber operations, observing their Illinois National Guard partners and learning how they handled this contested domain. In a few short years, Poland has developed a formidable cyber program and was recently ranked 6th in the Global Cyber Defense Index that measures advanced resilience against cyber attacks. In another example, in July of 2022, the Washington National Guard hosted the Cybersecurity Capacity Building Program Conference, the first of its kind. It included cyber experts from the Washington National Guard, INDOPACOM, the Royal Thai Armed Forces, the Indonesian Armed Forces, and cyberspace operation professionals from the Vietnamese military. As I mentioned before, Vietnam is partnered with the Oregon National Guard, while both Malaysia and Thailand are partnered with the state of Washington. Together, they developed cyber capability, toured Microsoft's campus in Redmond, Washington, to learn about the company's cybersecurity efforts and learned about protecting critical infrastructure. By a collective building capacity, and more importantly, building relationships before a crisis or conflict takes place, we help each other become stronger and more resilient. Although we may be separated by language or distance, but we are united in what we seek, a peaceful, stable world, safe countries and safe citizens, and together we step closer to making these things possible. We also have the opportunity to address the things that challenge all of us: cyber threats, malinformation and disinformation, global pandemics, malevolent actors, climate change, and inner crises, just to name a few. These challenges aren't confined to a single country, a single region, or even a single hemisphere. Both directly and indirectly, they impact all of us. They are a collective problem, and addressing and overcoming them is our collective responsibility. That's why earlier this year, the Washington Air National Guard and the Royal Malaysian Air Force signed a sister squadron agreement between their 320 Control Squadron and also the 225th Air Defense Group Western Air Defense Sector in Washington. The seeds of this agreement began 6 years ago with the first SPP subject matter exchanges. Now they've strengthened their collaboration and further formalized their defense ties. As our Air Defense Group Commander, Colonel Anthony Braun said, it's not just about sharing knowledge, it's about understanding each other's cultures and approaches to our unique missions. By furthering the region's goals for air domain awareness and development of professional airmen, this partnership establishes the foundation for mutually beneficial exchanges to emphasize detection, sensing, and fusing information. These exchanges ultimately strengthen both nations' defense capabilities. The success of these partnerships is built on relationships.
General, can you try to wind up within the next minute?
Yep.
Thank you.
The success of these partnerships is built on relationships that endure across decades, spanning the entire duration of careers. I see the relationships develop between our adjutants general and the ministers and chiefs of defense. These are genuine friendships with shared history, mutual understanding, and yes, inside jokes. These relationships can be found at every rank, and our service members' careers progress, these relationships endure. When it is time to train, time to respond, or time to fight, our guardsmen and their partners build on existing relationships of trust and respect. When called, we stand shoulder to shoulder with friends, not strangers. In the current strategic environment, these relationships matter more than ever. Our national defense strategy is clear. Mutually beneficial alliances and partnerships are an enduring strength, and they will be even more critical in the years ahead. There are so many benefits to our cooperation: stronger diplomatic relations, greater prosperity, advancements in science and technology, improved resilience in the face of adversity, and a stable, more peaceful world for generations to come. Freedom and democracy are foundational values, and no one can uphold them alone. Instead, we must work together, nurture our alliances, and invest in the partnerships that may one day make the difference between stability and chaos, between democracy and authoritarianism, or one day, victory and defeat. Our motto is always ready, always there, and our partnership program is fundamental to that motto, not only for ourselves, but for our partner nations as well. Thank you for inviting me to join you this morning, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, General Håkansson, for your very comprehensive presentation as well. And I think you did emphasize capability and capacity building. It's quite clear the United States has an important role here. United States has been a leading state in all the critical technologies. Even today, the US is still ahead of several other major powers, although they are also catching up. So there is quite a lot to learn from the United States, especially in terms of the partnerships that they focus on in Africa, as well as in Asia, especially also with ASEAN. Cooperation between the United States and ASEAN dates back to the time the United States recognized ASEAN in the late 1970s. So I would think that climate change, yes, cybersecurity are very important areas. And the United States, I think, can shed very critical information on the critical technologies that are needed to maintain Asia-Pacific security and now perhaps Indo-Pacific security, and more specifically ASEAN security, which will also include Malaysian security. So there's a tremendous amount of goodwill, I think, despite the controversies that may arise between the United States and ASEAN. You can see that the United States is also playing an important role in strengthening Philippine defense and security, because there are new threats that have arisen in the South China Sea. It also impacts upon us and our interests there. So how do we protect our core interests in the South China Sea as much as the Philippines and Vietnam are concerned? We need cooperation, not only at the regional level, but also with external powers. And I believe that the United States is an important contributor in this dimension. So thank you so much, General Håkansson, for your presentation. And now we look forward to our third and final speaker. Probably will give a little more academic analysis on how she sees ocean security, and especially her interest also in cybersecurity. Dr. Su.
Sorry. Hello, good morning, and Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I'm truly honored to be here today. And first, I would like to thank Chief Executive of MIDAS, Major General Dato' Haji Yaakob bin Haji Samiran, for kind invitation to be here today. And of course, it's a great honor for me to be on the same panel with Honorable General Tan Sri Dato' Sri Muhammad bin Abdul Rahman, and also the Honorable General Daniel. It's a great honor for me. And thank you, Prof. Nathan, for the kind introduction as well. So my background is from law, and currently I'm working on cybersecurity, particularly in the maritime domain. So the approach that I'm going to look at will be pretty much in the maritime context. When I was asked to speak for the panel, I was thinking, what should I speak? And since I'm from the law background, and I have to say that I'm not expert in the defense diplomacy, but I tried to find a simple definition of how to understand defense diplomacy and how do we look at the opportunities for corporations in that area. So the topic for today will be emerging technologies and opportunities for defense diplomacy in the maritime context. So the key discussions point will be emerging technologies and maritime cyber threats and critical national infrastructures, significance of submarine communication cables and national security, and opportunities for defense diplomacy, and what could be the way forward. So for emerging technologies and maritime cyber threats, nowadays we have this increased usage of IT and OT technologies, and maritime infrastructures are increasingly connected to the internet more than ever before, and thus they are becoming more vulnerable to cyber attacks. So when we are looking at maritime infrastructures, we have key infrastructures like ships, ports, and also offshore oil rigs. And in order to handle these issues, we have to look at key three elements here: the information that we share, technology that we employ, and also the people who involved in the managing all these information as well as the technology. And also forward-looking for the future, mass maritime autonomous surface ships are coming in, and we will have more increased usage of artificial intelligence, IoT, and also drones. So why cybersecurity in the maritime context? As an academic, when I am working on the research and talking to the various stakeholders, I always get these questions that why cybersecurity in the maritime industry or maritime context, how it is relevant. So the global supply chain is heavily reliant on maritime transportation, since more than 90% of world trade is carried by the shipping industry. And the global pandemic sped up the digitalizing progress of the maritime industry, including seaports. And a report published by Lloyd's of London indicated that if 15 Asian ports were hacked, financial losses would be more than US 110 billion, a significant amount of which would not be recovered through insurance policies, as OD system hacks are not covered under the insurance. And also for cybersecurity risks for ships, vessels are now connected, where these connected solutions are not always installed with cybersecurity in mind. So most of the vessels are really old, and their designs and the way they structures are not really cyber resilient. So there are two aspects here, the technical aspect. Large-scale commercial operators are running with hulls that are decades old and retrofitted with various kinds of technology when regulatory mandates make that necessary. And another aspect would be the socio-technical, which are the people. So many of the personnel involved in the maritime industry are lower paid and less skilled. This is based on the research. So the next point is that, of course, I have very limited time, so I cannot cover very detailed. But another key points that we should take note would be the identification of critical national infrastructures, talking about emerging technologies and the challenges that we have nowadays. So generally, when we define the C&I sectors, we'll have energy, utilities, which also includes the internet facilities, and also transport, and of course, financial services. So it's very important for every nation to understand what are our critical national infrastructures so that we can prepare the policy and regulatory preparedness to protect those critical national infrastructures. And I would also like to highlight these issues, which is very important: significance of submarine communication cables and national security. So 99% of the internet is cable-based. That I'm sure many of us realize, or some of you might think that internet comes from the satellite, but it's not true. It is cable-based, and which transmits internet signals from the submarine cables that are typically laid or buried under the seabed. So the global submarine network is the backbone of the internet, which is essential for global communications, including the use of email, social media, phone, and banking services. I think without internet, we all wouldn't be here today altogether. It is estimated that roughly US 10 trillion of economic activity moves through submarine cables every day. And despite submarine cables' critical importance, almost all of them are privately owned and maintained. Submarine cables are critical for transatlantic security, as regional governments rely heavily on such infrastructures for their own communications, since diplomatic cables and military intelligence information largely pass through these privately owned cables. So what could be the opportunities for defense diplomacy? So I was trying to search for the simple definition, how I should understand defense diplomacy. So I found this, and it's pretty much very simple, and it's exchange of personnel, ships and aircraft, high-level visits and senior commanders, bilateral meetings and dialogue, training and exercises, regional defense forums, military assistance, confidence building measures, and non-proliferation. And the main purpose is to build and maintain trust, which is very important, and help in the development of democratic armed forces. So we have to look for the opportunity by having this kind of activities, to look for the opportunities, where do we cooperate to face the emerging technology. So what could be the way forward? So these are based on my personal experience talking to different stakeholders while working for my research project. So first, the security threats landscape is changing due to digitalization. So even for lawyers, regulators, we can't be on our own anymore. It has to be multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary approach. Regulators does not know how to hack. We need to talk to hackers. In order to properly regulate the industry. So the security landscape is changing, and awareness is very important. We need to know what is happening in the environment. Talking about maritime environment, so we have this maritime domain awareness, what's going on in our marine environment. We really need to be well aware of that. And after realize that what is happening, what are the challenges we are facing, we need to set the common goals based on key priorities, urgency for our national interests, because different countries have different capabilities, different national interests, different priorities. So we all have to know individually first before we go beyond talking about cooperation and collaboration. We need to know what are our priorities, what are our challenges. And internally itself, when we have the different stakeholders involved and we all need to set the common goals, we need to sit and talk and plan properly. And mutual trust among relevant stakeholders is also very important. Regulators, public authorities, law enforcement, of course defense, and also private sectors, because we all have to work together in order to achieve the common goals. And capacity building, of course, it's very important. Skills and training is very important. So previously, maybe Navy, when we have the naval ship, might not really care about cybersecurity. But now we might have to look at whether the naval vessels are cyber resilient, or do we need the cybersecurity experts on board naval ships, for example. And close cooperation between public and private sectors, and cooperation and coordination should be at national, regional, and global levels, respectively. And of course, we need to work together, the government, academia, and the industry. And we need to be forward-looking in problem solving. So I need to highlight one point here. When we are talking about forward-looking, we are not looking forward to have a big disaster to add. We need to be forward-looking in, preparing to face the challenges that we are going to face. So it is very important, because whenever we have academic discussions, how do we convince the stakeholders to act on it, to come out with the regulations, to have the effective governance? Then we shouldn't be just waiting for the big disaster to occur, but we have to be proactive. So I also would like to share this. I had a recent seminar, international seminar on maritime cybersecurity, which is part of my FRGS project, funded by the Malaysian Ministry of Higher Education. And it was graciously supported by the Defense Cyber Electromagnetic Division of the Malaysian Armed Forces. And I would like to sincerely thank Malaysian Armed Forces for being very supportive with my research. And of course, the key takeaway would be the will. So if there is a will, this is my favorite quote, there is a way. So we just need to have the will to act, and we can work together to achieve our common goals. So with that, I would like to thank everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Su. You have been very faithful to keeping time within the limits. That gives us a little more time for Q&A. I think your presentation emphasized the need to link emerging critical technologies with critical national infrastructures. Quite clearly in the maritime domain, ports, ships, and all other maritime facilities that also contribute to national security require protection, require advancement, require research and development. And I think you did make a good point about how there should be closer cooperation between government, academia, and industry, each one reinforcing the concepts and applications that are required to deal more positively with the new critical emerging technologies. Yeah, thank you for your presentation. Now we come to the Q&A, ladies and gentlemen. This is a time for you to also raise critical comments and also ask critical questions. As you know, in democratic countries like Malaysia, we have abundant freedom of speech. However, there is no absolute guarantee of freedom after speech. So I think we are all aware of the balance between the two, and in that context, please do raise your constructive comments and suggestions. Yeah, I see one hand there.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. Good afternoon. My name is Tengku Ahmad Ridauddin, Tengku Abdul Razak. I'm representing companies that deal with genomics. Yeah. But my question is to all of the panels. First, I've not heard that any of you mentions, since the first sessions of the non-traditional threats, any of the panels talk about the genomics issues in emerging technologies. Genomics is very new things. It's talking about genetics and epigenetics when you talk about the futures of how you build your new soldiers, new defense securities. So I think it's not being touched by any of the panels. I hope the panels here could answer that because this wrong epigenetics development will lead to terror, and error also. Secondly, I've not seen any of the panel talk about food security. Food security is very important now because you see when countries have problems with wars, in order to maintain the human stability, we need to ensure that food can be delivered to the both parties. If we have a food blockage, then we have issues. Now we maintain the security of human beings. The third one is about financial security. It's about the seizure of financial assets of countries, like what we have now in Russia and the West. I'm talking about in academic issues where how the regulations and the people talk about the legal veto power when you talk about ensuring certain blockage of asset seizures for countries that sometimes does not involve in the war. Thank you very much to all the panels. I hope I got the better answer from you.
Do you all prefer to answer this question first? Comments, or shall we take another one or two and then perhaps we can allow our panel to respond? Okay, second question. First one was on genomics and financial security and food security.
Good morning. I'm Major General Johnny Lim from the Undercommandant of the National Resilience College. And my question is directed to General Håkansson and perhaps Dr. Su. It's on cyber security. As nations and militaries around the world advance in technology and IT, I think there's a blurred distinction between what constitutes an act of war or a cyber attack. So how do you define this and address this? Thank you.
Thank you. And maybe one more question or comment before we turn it over to the panelists to respond. Anyone has any burning question or comment? Oh yeah, there you are.
Thank you, panelists, for sharing your wisdom. I'm Colonel Kong from the Singapore Armed Forces. My question relates to developing international protocols for emerging tech. As we understand, a lot of the emerging tech also overlaps with sensitive emerging capabilities, whether in the military or other areas. So how important is it for countries, international organizations, to develop international protocols to manage the risk of employing such technology so as we can preserve the security while at the same time exploiting all the advantages that the emerging technology can give us? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So your question is about how do you develop the relevant protocol to manage risks. Okay, I believe all of you will be very much ready to tackle one or all of the comments or questions raised. I'll start with the general. You have any comments or any question? Otherwise, General Håkansson, you can take the burden now.
Okay. I know we got one directly about cybersecurity, and and I believe your question was, how do we tell if we're at cyber war? One of the things that we use in the United States is we say that we're at war in cyber every single day. There are threat actors out there trying to attack our critical infrastructure. And so we spend a lot of time, number one, identifying what that critical infrastructure is, and then making sure that it's resilient. Because at the end of the day, what you want to do is create a question if somebody is going to do a cyber attack, number one, whether or not it will be successful, and number two is to identify the ability to attribute it to where it came from so you can identify the perpetrator. So within the National Guard, we work very closely with our states, number one, to identify the critical infrastructure, number two, to make sure that it is resilient and can withstand attacks, and so that we create the perception in our adversaries that they cannot accomplish what they're trying to do. And at the end of the day, I would say one of our greatest roles as the military is deterrence, is to prevent war and maintain peace. And so everything that we can do individually and as organizations and as nations to cause others to realize that our critical infrastructure, our nation, we are resilient enough to withstand their attacks, hopefully it will prevent us from getting to that point.
Any other comment? And Dr. Su, do you have?
Hello. Hello. Yes. The first question is, in fact, I don't really have the in-depth knowledge about genomic issue. It's really new, but it's definitely worth researching after this. If it's talking about the genetics, and I'm just trying to relate it, would it be considered related to something related to biological weapons, that in that case we have WMD, and maybe General might be able to share more on that, because we have PSI from United States, Proliferation Security Initiative. And talking about food security, financial security, so in fact, I would say when we talk about critical infrastructures, and also when we identify, for example, in Malaysia, transportation is part of CNII, Critical National Information Infrastructure, but we may need to a bit more emphasize on, for maritime, more detailed identification of, in the maritime sector, for example, ports considered critical national infrastructures, or even ships are considered, or oil rigs are considered critical infrastructure. So just now, like General pointed out, that we need to identify what are critical infrastructures, then so that we can make sure that they are resilient for any kind of attack, cyber or physical. So for food security and financial security, I think, for example, submarine cables, right? So submarine cables, so much money traveling across the ocean, transcending across the ocean through the cable. So if something happened to the cable, you don't have internet, you have internet breakout for 2-3 days, that you cannot transfer any money, you will definitely, the nations will be losing so much money on that. So somehow it's related to financial security as well. And if there is no communications, and also supply chain, for example, talking about ships being, subject to cyber attack, and for example, Suez Canal incident, Evergreen incidents, and every day when the ship was stuck, billions of dollars, the losses occurred. So these are the situations, I would say, not expressly mentioned that it's a food security or financial security, but definitely when we identify the critical national infrastructures, and if we have a proper system to make sure that they are resilient for any kind of attack, of course, including cyber attacks, then we can ensure that there is food security and financial security as well. That would be my my thoughts. Yes.
Just one comment from General Hawkinson. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I could just a brief comment on food security. As we know, the whole world is intertwined. And when Russia, through unprovoked, invaded the nation of Ukraine, they impacted that, and it has global implications, not only to the supply of grain and wheat to other parts of the world, but also having people move from their homes into other countries and create a burden that was not there before. Anytime a nation chooses war, there are going to be global implications. We all need to be aware of that. And the idea is to deter those wars and maintain peace as best as possible. And the other point is when you talk about the transit routes, there have got to be international rules and order and laws that everyone follows so that we can have a set expectation that when shipping leaves one country, that it's going to get there safely. And therefore it will not be an additional burden on them or provide additional security or even question whether or not they can get across certain waters. So we have to make sure that we uphold the global norms so that we can expect that. And when you see countries indiscriminately attacking shipping, we all pay for that because now the insurance rates go up, the cost of shipping goes up, and for some countries, the difference in price could make all the difference. And so anything we can do to, once again, promote peace and stability, respecting international borders and laws, it provides the rules under which everyone can operate and ensure really that we remain as prosperous as possible.
Yeah, thank you, General Håkansson. I think you also answered the question about financial security, economic security, national security, how they are all linked. Well, I will not attempt to summarize, but I think all three presenters have actually very comprehensively dealt with this subject of emerging technologies and how nation states will have to address these challenges and concerns that are emerging at the global level, institutional level, and also at the regional level and national level. So let us give them a real big hand for their wonderful presentations. So thank you, General Tan Sri Mohammed, General Håkansson, Daniel Håkansson, and Dr. Su Waiman. Thank you all very much, and good afternoon.
Thank you, Professor. We'd like to invite all our members of the panel to kindly remain on stage as I invite Major General Dato' Haji Yaakob bin Haji Samiran, Chief Executive of MIDAS, to accompany General Tan Sri Dato' Sri Muhammad bin Abdul Rahman, Chief of Defence Force Malaysia, in presenting tokens of appreciation to members of the panel and to our moderator. We thank General Daniel R. Håkansson, Chief of the National Guard Bureau, United States of America. And thank you, Dr. Su Waiman, Senior Lecturer at the Faculty of Law, University of Malaya. And to our moderator, Professor Dr. K.S. Nathan, Senior Research Fellow at the Asia-Europe Institute, University of Malaya, Kuala Lumpur. And I'd like to invite Major General Dato' Haji Yaakob to kindly present a memento of sincere appreciation to General Tan Sri Dato' Sri Muhammad bin Abdul Rahman, the Chief of Defence Force, Malaysia. Let's have our panel and moderator kindly pose for a photograph together to wrap up the session. Once again, thank you to panelists and moderator of Session 2, Applying Emerging Technologies and Improving Military and Defense Diplomacy. And we'd also like to thank Yang Berbahagia Major General Dato' Haji Yaakob bin Haji Samiran for joining us on stage and presenting mementos of sincere appreciation. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the 7th Putrajaya Forum. We look forward to hosting you at the 8th edition of the Putrajaya Forum. And on that note, I'd just like to quickly announce that lunch is served next door at the Adjacent Ballroom, and we will be hosting the opening ceremony for DSA 2024 and NatSec Asia 2024 in this hall. For your information, at 2:30 p.m. On that note, thank you very much, everyone. Have a wonderful and productive day ahead. Thank you for joining us here on day 1 of the DSA 2024. We look forward to hosting you again in the near future. Have yourselves a good lunch.